Hey everybody, this is Surviving Darkness with Heather and Jenny, and we are on episode 57. I always pause when I'm doing that because Jesse said, you should say Surviving Darkness first, and I normally always want to say this is Heather and Jenny, so I stopped for a second before
she lets anybody know what episode.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't feel like we're on episode 57 either. Never really been battling. I didn't even tell you this beforehand, and it just hit me. Like, I feel like we're almost at not a standstill because there's so much that we can talk, almost like we need to revamp or something.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling. I really do.
And I was like, it's not something that you have to have every week.
Right.
It's a podcast and people can pick it up whenever. But I was like, I really feel like maybe we should sit down, schedule it out. We have people that we want to get on here and talk with, and just really get a schedule going. And I don't know. I just feel
a little more structured with things.
I feel like we're sort of not. We are putting God first, but at the same time, it feels like we're not. I don't know. I'm just at a weird place right now. And maybe it's just because of everything going on.
I think too, because we've had to miss so many episodes there for a long time. We were every week, and then we had weather and the sickness and everything like that. And so I think that's a little bit of it too.
So many doctor's appointments. It's almost everything's just overwhelming right now.
Yeah.
In our personal lives, everything's just overwhelming. But then again, I'm like, is that sort of what the enemy wants, is for us to become overwhelmed? So we shut up, even if it's just for a little bit.
Right.
And so that's another thing that I feel like we'll just take to God in prayer and see where He's leading us. But I just was like, with everything going on, do we want to stop and revamp? But anyway.
Remind me to tell you too I did have a conversation with one of our listeners about remaining anonymous or not, and she has some very good points.
Okay.
And I did want to talk to somebody who, anyone could have their opinion, but an avid listener that knows all about the episodes and everything too.
Right.
But I wanted her opinion too.
Okay.
But, so remind me to tell you about that when we're done.
Okay. So today we had talked about something that's really just within the last couple of days has just been thrown in my face, and it's the fourth watch. And I had never really thought about the fourth watch and even what it is. But I'll just start from the beginning of what happened early this morning and why I really was focusing on this fourth watch with the time, because the fourth watch is between 3 and 6 a.m. And it's a time when there's a lot of spiritual stuff going on. It's when spiritual activity is really strong. But anyway, my husband gets up and goes to work. He usually leaves around 4:15. But I woke up this morning, and usually I go right back to sleep, but there's times that I don't, and that I'm just scrolling Facebook or just whatever, because I can't get right back to sleep. But I laid there and went through the phone some, and probably around 4:30, something 05, I was like, well, I'm going to roll over here and go back to sleep. Well, I rolled over with my back to the doorway, and I closed my eyes and got ready to go to sleep, and then I felt this darkness, this negative energy just come into the room. And it was when I opened my eyes, the room was darker. I mean, it was dark. And it just seemed like it was darker than what it was when I closed my eyes. But so I recognized what was going on, and I was like, no, we're not doing this. And I told whatever the spirit was that it could get out of my house, it could get out of the room. It's not to go aggravate Mom or anybody else in the house. It's to leave the house and go back to the pits of hell where it belongs. And then I just started praying in the spirit and inviting the Holy Ghost in to chase out any kind of darkness, and pleading the blood over the house and myself and Mom and everybody within the vicinity. And just began praying just pretty much for everybody until the atmosphere changed. I just prayed until I knew it was gone. And I was like, I'm going to play some Christian music or something to keep the atmosphere feeling light. And I started playing some music, and it just wasn't really helping me calm down. So I was like, let me find something to listen to. So the first thing I come to, and I don't remember if it was just like spiritual battling or exactly what it was about, but the very first thing they started talking about was the fourth watch. Well, at church last night, we're going over, like, talking about spiritual warfare. And it just seems like that's the forefront for everybody right now, because I had started our series on spiritual warfare long before they started theirs at church. But they mentioned the fourth watch. And I'm like, what's the deal with the fourth watch? But anyway, so what happened with me was probably between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and it was during the fourth watch. And as I'm listening to that, they're talking about how, if God wakes you up, like during that time, and if it's like a continuous waking you up during that time, or you feel the need to pray if you're already awake during that time, then God's probably calling you to intercede, because that is a time that there is so much spiritual battling going on. So I was just listening, and they were talking about how during that time is a good time to pray that wall of protection around your family members, around yourself, around your community, everything like that hedge of protection, because that is when the spirit is so strong, and that's when the miracles happen and everything. Plus, that early in the morning, it sets the precedence for the rest of your day. Mm-hmm. So you've already got that wall built up of protection before your feet have actually hit the floor. But anyway, I got up, and no sooner than I get up, I'm trying to get a house sold. I still have people living there, and I'm messaging them because we have people that want to go look at it, and they're like, well, we're sick and packing up, so it's not a good time. So when you're selling a house, the last thing you want to do is tell people, no, you can't come look at the house. So I was like, we have 2 people wanting to come this weekend. So I was like, well, I get it. I understand you're going to be busy. You're going to be packing, but I need at least one of them to be able to come, because I'm not turning away everybody. But anyway, it was like all this chaos. I had a chiropractor appointment. My appointment's at 10. I'm leaving the house probably 20 after 10. And I'm not one that's usually late. I usually am good at managing my time and being like, well, I got 10 minutes to be there and heading out the door about that time. But no, not today. It's 10:15. I look at the clock, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to have been there 15 minutes ago. I didn't even realize that it had gone. Well, we've been waiting for a letter for my husband concerning his black lung. But anyway, this is the 8th week, and of course, they said 6 to 8 weeks. Well, I look at my phone when I wake up and just look at the email and see like what all's coming in the mail, because I have some kind of service through the post office that lets me know what's in my mailbox before or coming. So the mail had ran, and I knew that there was this important letter in the mailbox, but my morning had been so horrible that I was like, I'm not even looking at that until I get back from the chiropractor. I'm stressed enough. I'm just not even go full with it until I get back. Well, I get back and I open it up, and it was actually, it's bad news that he's got the black lung, but it's good news that he can be compensated for it. And with everything going on right now, that is a huge blessing for us to know that, that is coming. That is a light in the darkness that we've been living through here lately. But what I was getting at was, I didn't know that the letter was coming at 4:30, something till 5 this morning. But the enemy knew that letter was coming. So he came in the room to distract me, to try to instill fear in me, try to ruin my day, because normally when I have encounters like that next day I'm so bumfuzzled and just so out of sorts, like when we have the nightmares and things like that. It's like I'm just not good that next day. But I was fine as far as that was concerned. And then I had all the other craziness. So what had happened is the enemy did not want me to just enjoy a blessing or be happy or less stressed because we had something that's going to help us in our near future. So he sent all this craziness. He sent a demonic presence in the room, everything to put me in a bad mood so that I couldn't fully appreciate the blessing that was coming my way. And that's how he works.
You know, I just happened to think, you and I were talking about our brother the other day, and you had said, actually, you know what? I don't think we were talking about it. I think I had listened to the podcast where you and Jesse were on here. And you had said that, you know, he had taken his own life, and then a week later they found out that he was approved for disability. So that was a light, could have been a light at the end of his tunnel.
But the enemy didn't let him see it.
Didn't let him see it. Mm-mm. And he won, you know what I mean? Like in his mind, not like my brother's mind, our brother's mind, there was no other, things were just so bad, that was his only option, was to take his life, you know?
Here's the thing though, we can't see what's going on in the spiritual realm, but the spiritual realm can see what's going on in the physical.
Mm-hmm.
So they already knew he was getting that letter.
Mm-hmm.
They know what's going on in the physical. They already knew that the letter was at our post office this morning. The demonic realm already knew that it was going to be loaded up on the truck today. It already knew it was going to be in my mailbox today. So it started before 5 o'clock this morning,
mm-hmm.
trying to mess up my whole day.
That's what I was saying about him, is it knew,
Yeah.
and it knew how to attack him,
Mm-hmm.
with him fighting with his wife, and having him think that because he had drank a beer or two that nobody was going to love him anymore and everybody was going to be down on him and everything. So it just beat everything in his mind that there's no reason for you to be here because you're just a failure.
Right.
And they'd had a hard time financially for a while. And like you say, our time and the spiritual time is different, like you had talked earlier. And so it very well could have known what was coming for him, you know?
Yeah,
and
I'm sure it did, because
mm-hmm.
I mean, the decision had already been made.
Mm-hmm.
That is like something that happens in the physical that's not in the mind, but actually physically happening.
Yeah.
Because they say, the enemy can't read your mind, but it knows, it can see what's actually happening and what you speak.
Right.
So it was already spoken that he won amongst the people there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
At the hearing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was already typed up, the letter. It was probably already sent out. No, she got a phone call.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, she got a phone call was what it was. So it was already been determined, that he got it. So it had to go, I guess, maybe to the lawyer or whoever for them to call him and let him know. So it was already in the works
mm-hmm.
to let him know. The enemy already knew that was going to be a blessing for him. That was going to take so much weight off his shoulders.
Yeah.
That he piled it on before he could get that blessing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It just totally was like,
yeah, I'm gonna
taking everything from you, and not just from him. It was from everybody around. That was a way to torture everybody around him because
exactly
of what he did, and that took a physical and mental toll on all of us. Numerous people, just too many to even say. Well, it felt like it took out a whole family. It did.
And isn't it weird how it can orchestrate things, use other people to just keep adding stuff to you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some days I'm like, I cannot take another thing. And it's like some other person will call, or someone will text, or someone will comment. Somebody comes at you one way or the other, and you're like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? I'm just minding my own business. Why? And if one more person one more person does this, I'm just going to go off. It's like the demonic realm knows that you're already at your max, so they're going to put a little bit more. So yeah, that's probably what happened with him. He was at his max, so I'm just going to add that one more straw.
And until you said what you said today about what you were going through and everything, I hadn't thought about it that way. And then listen to the podcast, and that's what I said. Like, I pick on you about not listening, but there's things when I go back and listen that I remember or that I heard or whatever that we were talking about. And while we're talking about it, doesn't always register.
Right.
So for me, because I do have a little bit of a harder time comprehending things, when I go back and listen, I can either remember or remember what we're saying or whatever, or rehear it and it click,
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So
Right.
yeah, so we didn't know that that's what we were going to talk about today.
No,
But
we sort of went off on a different tangent, but that's fine.
and I hadn't listened for a couple of weeks because I've been sick and everything. So I was like, I got to get caught back up. And so even today, when we were talking about what our subject was going to be today, we didn't talk about that. Didn't dawn on me until just now with him.
No, I mean, we wind up sharing what needs shared.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's placed on us during this time. We don't have any kind of script that we go by. We just go by whatever comes to our mind, comes to our heart that we want to share.
Mm-hmm.
But so today, where that fourth watch has really just been on me, I was like, I don't know a whole lot about the fourth watch. So I started studying and looking up stuff. So I'm just going to share some stuff with you so that you all know, like, if you're being woke up a lot during this time between 3 and 6, it may just be God telling you to get up and pray. You may not even know what you're praying about or praying for. Just pray for your community, pray for your family, pray for a hedge of protection around everything that you can think of. I mean, when you start praying, God will put more and more and more on your mind and in your spirit to pray about. So on the fourth watch, it says, research reveals the fourth watch is considered a time of great spiritual power. Miracles are performed, battles are won during this fourth watch. The Exodus from Egypt happened at that time. Many of the Jewish scholars and people believe it is a time when God walks the earth checking on his creation. It says, like, this one person was like, I awakened in the middle of the night feeling an urgency to pray for someone. So why not get up and accept Christ's invitation to pray? It says, and after several years of getting up early for the fourth watch, I confess I'm not consistent about rising at 3. Sometimes it's 4 or 5, and sometimes I fall back to sleep, but prayer is important anytime, all the time. So it says the fourth watch of the night in the Bible refers to the period between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. It's a time when Jesus famously walked on water to meet his disciples. And another part that I was looking at, Jesus wasn't right there with them. He was praying, like he was not even like in the boat, near the boat. He was on land and he was praying. But in the spirit, he knew that they were afraid because of the storm that was going on. He wasn't even there with them, but he had such a connection with them. And he was praying in the middle of the night, which was probably during the fourth watch, when the spirit realm is so active, that he knew that they were scared. And that's when he walked across the water to help them. And it says a more detailed explanation, the biblical context. In the New Testament, the fourth watch is mentioned in Matthew 14 and 25, where Jesus appears to his disciples in the middle of a storm on the Sea of Galilee during this time. The Roman timekeeping, it says that the Romans divided the night into 4 watches, each lasting 3 hours. So the first watch was 6 to 9 p.m. The second watch was 9 p.m. to midnight. The third watch was midnight to 3 a.m. And the fourth watch was 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Well, this just hit me. in the darkness is when the enemy attacks the most. So they had people all night long guarding. So they had the watchmen on the tower guarding all night. And in the spiritual realm, that's when the battles are going on. And we don't see it in the physical because it's dark.
Let me ask you a question. That time just made me think. When everything was going on with us at home, do you remember that most of the time, I'm sure it wasn't every time, but I think, like, when I think about during the night when everything was going on, most of the time between like 11:30 and 12 o'clock is when, you know, Dad would come in or whatever, you know, and things would happen. But by 3:30ish, 3 o'clock, 3:30, everything was done. Does that make sense?
It does, but with my memory, I usually didn't get to bed until about 5 o'clock and had to get up.
Well, I remember I would go to sleep about 4 and my alarm would go off about 5. So that's what makes me think.
Well, maybe 5 o'clock is what I'm thinking is what time we got up. But it was like I felt like if we just waited until the sun would start coming up or around 5, things would be okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah. Maybe it was I didn't get to sleep until about 3:30 and had to get up at 5.
That's how I was. But now it makes me think about this, you know. Yeah. Did things start to calm down during that time because we had
God walking with us?
Yeah, interceding with us, you know, during that time.
That is possible.
Because I just happened to think about that.
Right.
You know, that's about when I remember going to sleep or feeling like things were, if they hadn't happened by then, chances are it wasn't going to happen. Like by 3 o'clock, 3:30. And if it did, it was done by then, and then it'd go to sleep about 3 o'clock, 3:30 to get up at 5. And It's just weird to me about that. That's this time.
Right.
That's when this starts, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it says, like, the spiritual significance. For some Christians, the fourth watch is seen as a time of heightened spiritual activity, prayer, and reflection. Jesus walking on the water happened during the fourth watch of the night, which is a miracle that is mentioned in the Bible. Something else that I was hearing or reading, I don't know if it was what I was listening to on my phone last night or if it was something I read today, but they talked about how when Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and he would have to keep waking up the disciples that were there with him and say, can you not stay awake long enough to pray? He was praying during the fourth watch.
Mm-hmm.
Most of his praying happened during the fourth watch. Mm-hmm. The miracles that happened during the fourth watch. The battles that were won during the fourth watch.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole lot of stuff going on and a whole lot of victories and a whole lot of miracles that occur due to what is going on in the fourth watch.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were saying earlier that I had been talking about was them saying that the prayers that are prayed during the fourth watch and the battles that are fought during the fourth watch can change things in the spiritual realm that we don't see in the physical realm for, it could be weeks, months down the road.
Yeah, because their timing isn't the same as ours.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we could be praying about something today and it not manifest in the physical for whatever time frame that God decides that he wants it to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I was thinking about, you know, if it's a spiritual battle, there's going to be good and there's going to be evil. So I was like, the fourth watch spiritually on the good side is the good time. So then I was like, well, if there has to be like a polar to it, because there's good, there's evil. So then I was like, what about this devil's hour or the devil's time? So in folklore, the witching hour or devil's hour is a time of night associated with supernatural events, often considered to be between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., where witches, demons, and ghosts are thought to be most active. It says, here's a more detailed explanation. The time is, while definitions vary, the time is between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. is commonly associated with the witching hour, though some consider the hour immediately after midnight or even the hours between midnight and 2 a.m. For the supernatural beliefs, this period is believed to be a time when the veil between the spiritual and physical world is thin, allowing for greater supernatural activity. The biblical connection is some beliefs connect the witching hour to the time of Jesus' crucifixion, which was 3 p.m., with the opposite time, 3 a.m., being seen as a time when the devil mocks God. For popular culture, the concept of the witching hour has gained traction in popular culture, appearing in books, movies, and TV series, further solidifying its image as a time of darkness and potential danger. So I went a little bit further and I was like, okay, so they're talking about this spiritual veil. So I was like, I mean, I know that when they say that the veil was rent whenever Jesus died or whatever, however that went, you know, it took, the veil was torn, it was taken down. Now we can go straight to the throne room of God. We don't have to pass through that spiritual veil like with a minister or a priest or whatever. We can take our petitions to God ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I was like, in a spiritual context, the veil represents a barrier or a curtain that obscures the spiritual realm or truth, hindering our ability to see or understand it. It can symbolize blindness, unbelief, or separation between the seen and unseen worlds. So in a more detailed explanation, the biblical context in the New Testament, the concept of a spiritual veil is used to describe a hindrance to perceiving truth, often associated with blindness or unbelief. The metaphorical barrier, the veil, is often used as a metaphor for an intangible curtain that separates the unseen spiritual realm from the physical world. So removing the veil is lifting or removing of the veil signifies a breakthrough in understanding or a closer connection to the spiritual realm. And the thinning of the veil is during specific times, such as the end of October, when the boundary between the physical and spiritual world becomes more porous. So I was like, okay, so during that time, the veil is thinner. So we're able to get closer to the spirit and to the spiritual realm. So
we can in our spirituality, and then those that do witchcraft and everything
can in
theirs during that time too.
So yeah, it's just a time of spiritual battling. I mean, we battle spiritually all the time, but this is like when it's heightened because the good versus the evil during the witching hour and the fourth watch. So you've got the good versus the evil between 3 and 6. It's like just you can just picture this war going on, and there's a battle going on, but it's not a physical battle. It's a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
So the fourth watch is during the time that us as Christians need to be interceding. We need to be praying. We need to be vigilant. And it's hard. That is a sacrifice because that's the time that we're normally sleeping.
Good.
Yeah. We're usually sleeping good during that time. So it is a sacrifice, which makes it more. I think that when you sacrifice your time, your energy, all of that for the good of God, that it builds strength within you. But it's also a little bit more, a sacrificial praise, I think, just has a little bit more value than a praise when everything's going great.
Right.
I mean, I talked about that song last week, and that's just how I feel. I mean, when you praise God during a battle, I mean, it is a hard fought hallelujah,
Mm-hmm.
because it's taken everything within you to just say hallelujah.
Yeah. I think about that song, I'll praise you in this storm,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not when you feel like saying thank you, God, or you know what, I'm going to go ahead and praise you even though I don't feel like it, because you're letting things happen to me, is what a lot of people feel. But there are things that we go through anyway, and if you praise him, like you say, during that time, he knows your heart. He knows how saddened or bitter or whatever you are, but if you're still trying to give him praise during that time, then yeah, I do believe that he knows how much of a struggle it is for you at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he does appreciate the fact that you are coming to him and still saying, listen, it's not easy for me right now, but I'm still praising you right now,
Right.
because I know whatever happens, you have my good in mind, or that's what you are trying to do.
Right. And that's sort of what I'm saying too. It's almost like when you're in a battle and you come in with a prayer or something during a time that's sort of a sacrificial time when you could be sleeping. It's almost like you brought in a cannon where the enemy may have had a shotgun.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it feels like when you do that, when you sacrifice and bring in those prayers, it's almost like your ammunition is like doubled or quadrupled. Mm-hmm. You're coming in with so much stronger ammunition than what someone who isn't sacrificing anything would bring.
You feel like you're kind of having to dig deep
for it
to be able to do that prayer.
Yes.
And God knows how deep. He knows our minds, he knows our hearts, and he knows how deep we're having to dig to be able to get that prayer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And how much more it means versus when everything is going good and you're thanking him and all of that. But when you're struggling or when you're trying to fight something a lot harder, then he knows, like you say, what you're sacrificing, what you're giving up to be able to pray for yourself or somebody else during that time.
Right. Sorry. Went off on a tangent. Jesse was asking me about tomorrow and editing. Mm-hmm. Is someone going to be up in the morning? Mm-hmm. But yeah, this morning it just seemed like, it was a battle. It was like, I'm going to try to just ruin your whole day. I'm just going to start off right now and make things horrible for you. You're going to be tired. You're going to be grouchy. And then like after I felt the presence leave, I still turned on my lamp on my nightstand. And it wasn't a turning on the lamp because of I was afraid. And That was something that I have battled. Like if something like that would have happened before, I would have turned on the light because I was afraid. But I turned on the light because I was like, you know what? If something's going to come at me, I'm going to be prepared. Mm-hmm. So it was shedding a light on it so that I can be prepared for what might be coming at me, rather than turning a light on because I'm afraid.
Right.
But I was like, what in the world? Where did that come from? Because nothing had happened. We usually have that happen, or we have the nightmares and stuff when we've prayed with someone, when we've had a breakthrough with someone, when we've gone in and prayed things out of their home or prayed things off of them or out of them or whatever, is when we battle the most. So I couldn't understand where that was coming from this morning, but it was revealed where it was coming from. It was because there was a blessing in the mailbox. Mm-hmm. So that was just what that was all about, and just the whole fourth watch thing. So if you're one that tends to get woke up, just think about that. Maybe God is calling you to be a watchman. Maybe he's calling you to pray during that fourth watch. And I really think that there's more of a battle now than what there has ever been with the good and the evil in the spiritual realm. And it's like, I think of that that song about like the like rise up or something like that with like the Christians, that we need to rise up and battle even harder now than what we ever did before. And we have been prepared for this battle. We know that this battle was coming, and that it's needed more now than it has ever been needed before. There was something I was thinking earlier, and I can't think of what it was exactly. Just basically, there's an army rising up that to break every chain. That song, and that song, it was in my mind earlier. There is. I really feel that in the spirit there is an army rising up to break chains. There's going to be miracles. There's going to be people that are like spontaneously like delivered from addiction, like right then, right there. I just feel that there's going to be a move of God like we've never seen, like we've never encountered. And it's going to take us standing up and like going full force in the spiritual realm, the army rising up for people to be saved and set free and know the saving grace and the love of God. Well, do you have anything else? Well, I'm going to close with that. With the whole, I mean, we really need to show the love of God. And just keep in mind when you feel like everything's coming at you really hard, that there's more than likely a blessing coming, and the devil's trying to distract you. He don't want you to really enjoy that blessing. He's going to do everything he can to keep you from enjoying anything that God has sent for you or anything that is good for you.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So you all have a good week. And I will say, or I won't say we'll see you next week, because we don't really know what's going to happen. But we'll be back. All right. You all take care.